Welcome to the Jet Set Hers podcast. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Jamie. We discuss travel, adventure, and everyday life. Listen with us, and let's go somewhere.
Hi! Today's episode is going to sound a little different because we are actually sitting in person at a brewery, so you're going to hear some background noise. And Jamie's not here today. It's just me and Susie.
Hi!
So we are sitting down with Tim Whaler, one of the owners of History Class Brewing in Panama City, Florida. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
Welcome. We're just really excited to learn a little bit about beer because we don't focus so much on that as we'd like. So, do you want to tell us your role here at the brewery?
My role is everything beer. So anything that relates to the beer side of the business is me. So a lot of times I get to joke and say that I just make the beer and joke that I handle it from the brewery as soon as it hits the taps. Not my problem.
So you handle the best part.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the part I'm the most passionate about. So that's why you find good partners that want to do or excel at other things that you're not good at. That's what makes good business partners.
And it's kind of like raising puppies to sell because, like, they're totally your responsibility until they're picked up at 8 weeks, and you hope they're doing well and you wish them the best, but it's no longer your responsibility.
I'll check in on them every, if something's been on tap, which here, tap long for us is like 2 weeks. Right. So I'll give it a taste at the tap and just make sure that the puppy is still alive and well. So, Bellbooth Blonde.
Bellbooth Blonde. It's good. I actually do really like it.
And I've got the Hefeweizen.
Parker Hef. Yeah. So it's named after the town in Bay County that was established by German immigrants. And so it seemed fitting for the German Hefeweizen to get the Parker name.
And it's a fitting beer to drink on Oktoberfest weekend. I mean, cheers.
That's why it's here, yeah.
And you have a cream?
I do. I have a cream ale, which is my, I'm the typical brewer that really likes to just drink Pilsners because, I don't know, I'm over the, hop wars, and I do like drinking the milk stout. That's my favorite, but the cream ale is my go-to just because it's easy to drink. It's the faux Pilsner here, so...
So, what would you say you went from being a beer drinker to actually wanting to make your own at home?
Well, my grandpa made beer and wine. So as a kid, I knew it was possible. So I think as soon as I probably stole some of his beer and realized, oh, he made this and actually tastes like I think beer should, which is not good, when you're a kid.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know if there was a line in the sand. As soon as I discovered craft beer, I had an interest in making it. Yeah.
What was the first beer you made?
Well, the first beer I made was with the Mr. Beer Kit, which is like this little plastic thing you buy at like JCPenney as you're checking out. But no, my wife got it for me. Basically, as soon as we moved back to Panama City from Tampa, so we did, a decade of like school away, start your career, figure out life isn't that great doing that. And so we moved back. We had kids, and so I think we moved back like 4 days before Christmas, and that Christmas I got Mr. Beer and then made a terrible... The Mr. Beer Kit, 50% of it's just corn sugar. So it's like a corn sugar pale ale, air quotes. It made beer, and then I knew I could make it, so it was like a downhill slide. Every time I brewed, I had some new equipment.
So what would you say is the first beer you got experimental on that you were like, I don't know if I can do this, and then you did it?
I think like the third beer in of homebrewing, I was already off recipe, off kit. I discovered Brewer's Friend and was just, I probably had like 12 recipes before that. So that's really
pretty instant.
Yeah, so my strength in the brewing world is recipe creation. And so that's why there's no IPAs on, because I'm basically homebrewing at, professional scale. So it's always new beers. I think 60, like the first year, which we celebrated our first year in June. So the first year we did 96 brews and 60 were something new.
Wow.
So I'm always tinkering.
Do you have a Flagstaff beer here that you keep on all the time?
I joke with the front of house people because I'm like, we have no flagships. That's like our thing, no flagships. But we have core brands, I call them, and the blonde's the best seller. It's like when it's on, it's like 13% of our sales are the blonde. So out of 16 taps, that looks like a flagship core brand.
Blondes are pretty safe all around. I feel for people that don't know if they like beer or not. So that's
and kind of in the beach light, something light and refreshing.
That's right. And I mean, it's not my favorite beer, but it's most people's favorite beer that come. They know they can get the blonde, so I definitely make sure the blonde is on so that I don't get run out, pitchforks but yeah, so the blonde is on. The Mackenzie's Milk Stout is always on because that's my favorite, so I can't run out of my favorite.
No, you can't.
And then we have the most fun with the IPAs because IPA drinkers are naturally the ones that always want something new. So, I mean, we have a few that recur, but we have some that are branded, and every time I brew them, it's like one of the 3 main dry hops is a new variety. So it keeps it fresh and fun. And so, yeah.
I mean, as much as I do love IPAs, and I'm sad we don't have one today, I love that there are new beers every week or every few weeks because it makes people want to keep coming back. It's not like, oh, I'm sick of it.
Yep, and we always have a sour on. Of course, we don't right now, but I try to keep a sour on, and we change the fruit up. It's a fruited sour. So we always try to keep that on because there are people that just sours their jam.
I am not one of those people. I don't get it, but I know those people.
Sour,
So that's kind of like the gateway for the wine drinkers, really, which we do have wine. We do have, non-alcoholic, glass bottle stuff. It's fun for the family.
And the watermelon juice.
Watermelon juice. And then we have a beer and wine and cider license. So I do keep a cider on all the time that we make here in-house. So
I did see that. You had a seltzer and a cider, and those are always a good non-beer drinking. Walk us through a brewing process. So you get the idea for, say, something you haven't done before, and then just give us the entire, where we go.
So it's it's like a month out of brew day, I have to be, that's when the recipe creation happens. Because I have to get the next order going.
Yeah. You need to know what you need.
Yeah, and then so it's like a month out from brew day until it hits the tap. So I'm always listening to beer podcasts and got, all the magazines coming in. And so I try to keep my pulse on what's new, so what I can experiment in. So I don't really have too many boundaries. And brewing is awesome because if you stay within the guide rails, every beer you make will be something someone can drink. And so that's the fun. I just kind of stay in the rails and go off past experience of what I know certain ingredients are going to do to the beer in terms of changing mouthfeel and profiling and adjust for that. So it's just, I'll get an email and it's like, oh, there's this new hop and I'm off to the races. I drop everything I'm doing and I write a recipe, and then I typically will write a recipe and then come back to it when it's time to order, and I always tweak it even again. So it's just always tweak it.
And I feel like once you find a good one, you can even take it and add to it for the next batch.
That's right. Once you got a good base, you can always throw some fruit. Because we do, just because where we are, we do a lot
Beach
of
life.
Beer for drinking is key, right? So you can always throw some fruit on a beer for drinking and make it something fresh.
So for my own knowledge, throwing fruit in a beer, is it like fresh fruit, or how does that work?
Yeah, typically I stick with the purees and juices because we're so small. Like my brew space is 150 square feet, so I don't have the capacity to bring in.
And that's what's in the front.
Yeah, right. And then so when we're serving, the brew space is just full of pallets of grain and keg washers. So everything comes out when it's Monday, Tuesday brew day. And we got to pack it all back in there every day. So it's, space is a premium. So we stick to the purees and the juices, and we put them in mid-fermentation or post-fermentation, depending on what we want. But we usually, because we don't have filtering or pasteurizers, we have to put it in where fermentation's still going on so that it consumes some sugars and we don't have, issues with continued fermentation of the fruit.
I was gonna say, does that cause the alcohol content to rise over it?
Yeah, you got to adjust for that. Just assume you're going to ferment some more sugar and get some more ABV on the back end.
If you put it in after fermentation, do you taste the fruit more?
It's a different taste, yeah. So it's so usually I'll blend it. I'll throw purees in while fermentation's going on, and then spike it at the end with some juice, like 2 days before I crash it, and it retains some of that fresh fruitness. But I found if you do it mid fermentation, then you get a fuller fruit flavor that actually infuses in the beer better than just on the tail end or not doing the juice at the tail end. You kind of it's there, but not as punchy.
I've always wondered that because I do have some beers where it's supposed to be flavored and you don't really taste it, and then others you can smell it before you even take the sip. So.
And so, I mean, it's not a cheat. I don't think anything's really a cheat, but a lot of brewers will throw some extract in right at the tail end that sells the smell, right? Doesn't really give you much of the flavor you want, but the smell will
it's
be
important.
there. Yeah. So if you hit it with some extract, which I've done from time to time, if it's like, I did a watermelon sour, and it was like, you tasted the watermelon, but you had no idea it was watermelon until it hit your mouth, so I hit it with some extract. It's still a natural product. It's just.
So what's your favorite fruit to work with? What gives the best results?
I mean, my go-to somehow seems to be mango. I'm not a huge fruit beer fan, but we have a mango wheat that every time everybody's just, mango is good. Yeah.
I don't know why.
I love it.
Lime, I do a lot of lime. Yeah, we do the lime.
I can see that being a seller here.
Yeah.
In the BHG.
Yeah. So we'll throw the margarita goza where it's like limey with some salt. So that's a good one. I do that in the sour.
So do you only in the stouts? Is milk stout the only stout you like, or do you ever try the coffee stouts and chocolate stouts?
We do that. We got one. It's called Sirloin. It's kind of like a seasonal release. It's named after the King Neptune. When we were kids, King Neptune on Front Beach by Walmart, that actually was Sirloin Steakhouse.
That's a memory I forgot I had.
Yeah. And so we named the big stout Sirloin, and it had, cacao nibs and coffee. And it was the big boy, like 10% big stout. So
that's why I like it. Oh, wait. No, I like the coffee chocolate.
Our stout, I use a lot of chocolate malt in all the darker beers, so not as much roasted barley, so it's a little more, quarterly of a stout.
Yeah.
We got a milkshake IPA we pump out. It's like 10%, and it's 10 ounce pour is the max because people are used
get
to
mad,
drinking
but I'm
all
like,
these fives.
have one of those and
Yeah.
it'll hit you. Do you have? Is there a certain beer that's like way easier to brew and then some that are harder that you guys currently have?
Absolutely. Yes. Anytime you have to put hops in the fermenter for dry hop, you just got a lot harder. So it's like the blonde is, all the hops are hot side in the kettle. So once we whirlpool and get it in the fermenter, easy day, but coordinating those, double dry hops to get the juicy flavors, we put it in during active fermentation. So that's opening a bubbling fermenter, pouring it in as quick as you can and getting the lid on before you have some geyser or some wildness happening. And so we do that, dump those hops out the bottom. Once the beer's starting to crash, we do another dry hop. And so obviously that's a mess. And you have to filter it out, and your yield is lower. So that really is the harder in the process, is just getting those hoppy beers hoppy.
Those are my favorite too, and now I'm starting to feel guilty for all these breweries that have to
Oh
do
man,
this.
especially the guys that are.
Well, and that explains the price too. When you buy the IPAs, because I looked at them for you, and I'm like, that's $5 a can.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Those 4 packs.
And
But
now we know why.
Yeah, you're
exactly.
like,
the work that goes into it.
the new school IPA hops, you're looking at like $15 a pound, and you're looking at like 6 pounds per barrel. So like our little brewery is 3.5 barrels, so you do the math, and it's like the IPA's triple the hopping price of the blonde. That's where it's like, the blonde is the best seller, is fine. It's an easy one. I mean, we joke that it brews itself, but it's a solid recipe, so it is tasty. I mean, it's craft beer enough.
It's a good day drinking beer. How do you control the alcohol content? Like, how do you read the alcohol? That part always confuses me.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to actually measure it, which we have the tools we have. What we do is we measure the sugar at the beginning of fermentation. Then you measure the amount of sugar that's left after fermentation. And then there's math voodoo that gets you
equation.
ABV, and that's where the software does it.
This is definitely higher than you are yet. Maybe you will be in the future if you want to go that big. But so, like in Utah, you can only sell 5% beer in like the gas station. So I always wonder, these breweries that make 8-9% IPAs and they sell them there, they have to make like special batches, and it's not going to taste the same, right? Like,
alcohol definitely is a flavor and a mouthfeel that, like, if you're trying to make a hazy IPA, it's super difficult to get below 7%. Like, that seems, for me, the threshold's like our Union Soldier, which is like the bottom end of what we can pull off as a hazy. It's 6.8, and it's right on the edge. So what we do to kind of fool you is it's a little more bitter than the typical hazy. So it's like 35 IBU at the base charge, so that fills that alcohol void. At least in my head, that's where I'm at with it. So.
Okay, explain IBU, because I see it on the cans and I've tried to look it up, but I don't understand what's going on there.
Yeah, so that one's tricky. It's called International Bittering Units. It's a calculation of alpha acid content that gets into the beer. And so the hazy IPAs, as we talk about, or any new school IPAs dry hopped, you're getting IBU contribution in the fermenter or the whirlpool where there's not a heat source to calculate. It's a benchmark, I think. Especially, we don't put it on the board just because it's deceiving. Because like our hazy IPA, if you calculate the IBUs, is like 50, but the perceived IBUs is like 90. And so it's like it's not, the calculation doesn't match up with the new brewing techniques that craft brewers.
I was gonna say, going into this podcast, we always have a beer at the beginning. We always say the ABV. And I wanted to go into the other just because I'm like, we should say everything, but I just got really confused. And we just stopped that.
Yeah.
I've used it because I don't drink IPAs, so when they list it, I'm like, if it starts edging into the 30s or higher, I'm probably not going to like it because it's getting hoppier. Because that's, like you said, the hops. So
the hoppier, the happier.
No.
There is a limit. I mean, mid-2000s were some crazy beers. I mean, our hoppiest beer, which we're going to brew, we do it in October. It's a cool story about a shady character that came to St. Andrews in like the late 1800s, and the locals call him Captain Blood. So it's a great story. We do it obviously in October for Halloween, and it's a black IPA, Cascadian Dark, whatever the term is, but that's 130 IBUs, and so it's black IPA, so it's fun. And I brewed it as like, okay, I have to figure out. Yeah, I got to figure out where the customers will quit with the IBU. And I mean, my mother-in-law loves that one, and she's not a huge hophead. She can handle some IBUs, but when she tasted, she was like, "This may be the best one you brewed." I'm like, all right, and 30 IBUs.
And the names.
I was gonna say, and I might be wrong, but having a cool backstory makes it taste better, I think.
There.
100%.
Yeah, so that's one of those things that it's hard to figure out sometimes, because obviously I'm tracking what beers are selling at what rate they're selling, and just so that I know. And sometimes it's just like, was it that social media post we did? Is it the story? Is it the name? Is it where it is on the menu board? Is it the front of house people? What are they pointing people to? So finding all that out, I figured there is no answer, but I just have to go with my gut. We've had some great beers. We did an English mild, and I think it's one of the best beers. We nailed the style, which I typically don't do because I'm always tinkering and I don't really like beer style. But we nailed this. It was a great little mild. We called it, so West Bay was called Wapaluxy Bay. So it's like some Indian name that no one can pronounce. It was on the board. That was our slowest beer that ever sold. And I kept tasting it, a month after it was on tap. Tasted great. It's just, A, it's called Wapaluxy. B, it's a British mild. And there wasn't like a story video we did. And it just, but the people that drank it would literally come in every week and just drink it. It's like the same 40 people. Because they're like 40 this week, 40. It was wild. Yeah, so I'll bring it back and just rebrand it, and people will be like, "Oh, this is the best." Yeah. Right.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So all that goes into it, and but
so the people that did try it obviously liked it because they came back, but people were scared to even try it.
Well, and the untapped scores on it were like one of our better beers. So the people that appreciated it and weren't scared to say, "Hey, I want the Wapaluxy thing" or the whatever that's called. That's the hard thing about untapped is like that's a certain segment of the population that we don't have a lot of here, honestly. So I look at it, but it's like, can I judge?
I almost wonder if you need like a easy to say nickname for it, but then put the full name underneath it, like Wapa.
Right.
I get the Wapa.
Like the fest beer, like we're pouring the fest beer at the tasting. People are like, what is a fest beer? So Dan, our front of house guy, was like, it's called the September Fest. Because it's not a true Oktoberfest. It's a little different. So he called it September Fest. The name stuck. We came back to the tap room through September on there. There you go. People are ordering the September, not the Fest. We're down to like last keg. So that was like we tapped it on Friday, and here we are Sunday, and it'll be gone. So
Good stuff.
yeah.
We still have one in the fridge.
All right.
Okay, so I love hazy, juicy IPAs, like New England style.
Yep.
What is the main difference with that and brewing like a true IPA?
When you put the hops in the beer.
The timing.
Yep. And the malt bill has to have a certain amount of protein that makes it into the fermenter so that the hop oils and the yeast can do whatever the voodoo is that makes those hazy beers have haze stability and give you that juicy. The juiciness has to do with the yeast all playing together. So it's about timing. Traditional IPAs, most of the hops go in hot side, so you're getting the alpha acid, you're getting the bitterness. And then you do like a dry hop charge at the end after it's crashed, just so you have the smell of the hops. You crack open that can of a West Coast IPA that just annihilates your senses. That's that dry hop at the end. Where juicy, you put them all in like the whirlpool, which is after the beer is brewed in the kettle, you spin it to whirlpool. Well, then you're throwing hops in that are not at boiling temps, so you're extracting some alpha acids and oils. That's really the difference.
So is it true that there's any kind of like unfilteredness going on there? Because like a lot of people say New England style is just an unfiltered, that hazy color.
Most small breweries, us included, we have no filtration. It's like time is filtration. You leave it in the tank long enough, cold crash it, it'll fall out. If you have a true, stable, hazy beer, like a Hefeweizen, there are hazy IPAs on the market that go into cans that use a centrifuge, which is like the ultimate filter. But if the haze is stable, it makes it through that. So, unfiltered, most beers you have at craft breweries are unfiltered.
Okay.
And so, it's just that all that stays in instead of falling out over time. Yeah.
So that's where you get the color differentiation.
Yep, and that opaque, it definitely changes your perception, because we have one that's coming out next week. We call it C-Lab, after the Navy base and the experimental dive unit. So that's our experimental hop beer, where it's like every time I get an actual experimental hop, throw it in there. It is a juicy IPA that I use a fining agent to actually make it clear. So it's like a clear hazy, and it drinks different than a hazy IPA. It's not just visually, like you could blindfold it. It's gonna taste.
So how many people order the hazy, you hand it to them and they're like, this isn't the right beer?
Oh, the C-Lab, well, that actually people, the hop heads that like our Strong Boy and the Steels, which are our West Coast IPAs, they love that, and so do the hazy people, because it's kind of like the best of both worlds, I think. It's really good. Yeah, so last week we literally had 5. We had a row and plus one of IPAs, but, people like their IPAs and they drink them all.
Yeah.
As I was trying to get these German beers for Oktoberfest ready, which take time because that's what German beers do is take time. So somehow the IPA fell out of my brain. So, but next week we'll be back. And
I'll forgive you too. And so you guys opened when?
Well, we were supposed to open March of 2020. We brewed beer, we were ready to open, and then, the COVID thing was shut down. So we sold to-go beers, and officially we celebrate our birthday in June.
Okay.
So June of 2020, we had our first customers in the tap.
Was it kind of hard to sit here and be open, but not actually be able to open? Almost like disappointment?
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of work to get a brewery open. And so to get to right where we can open. And
COVID hits.
Yeah. And so our design was to sell all our beer over the bar. We were basically a proof of concept. So we knew that we wanted to sell it all over the bar. Nothing to go. Not even growlers, nothing. So when COVID hit, once we knew Florida was shutting down, within an hour we had bought a growler machine and had like 2,000 cans on order, which we thought was going to last us a while. But the first week we sold to go, I think we did like 900 growlers that I had to hand fill and seal. And we sold them in like 4 hours. So we pre-sold online and people just drove by and we handed them their to-go beer. So it was like, but that saved us. The community really, they stepped up.
The community rallied and you're here because people love your product.
I was going to say, I think also people are so excited to have a brewery. We don't have that many in this town.
Right.
So
Yep. The brewery
they wanted to try the beer.
Yeah.
The ones I've been to in the past disappeared. They closed. But I think I never saw the support in this community for the other ones. But I see this everywhere.
Right.
We're in a different time with craft beer. So
just the people and the support, and I think the whole history class idea is making people look at it a different way. So it's not only a beer; it's
Panama City.
It's an atmosphere. It brings in and it supports Panama City in a different way than just drinking. So people are like, yes, I'm supporting that because that's me.
Well, especially after Hurricane Michael, this is exactly what this town needed.
Yeah, and that's why when we were going to open and we were like, oh, yeah, we're opening in downtown Panama City. A lot of people are like, why are you not going to open on the beach? Like, where the people are. But, that's the cool thing about what we have is really our customer base is the locals. The tourists are like the cherry on top when they do make the trek across the bridge.
They've discovered it.
Yeah, but so no, this is, we say it's your downtown brewery to the community because that's really what our goal from the beginning was, is to create a space that the community could come and celebrate all the history that most of the community didn't even know existed in Panama City, and have a beer. So it's like, that's really what our goal for the place was, and the community, reaffirmed that that's what we all really wanted. We wanted it too. We traveled around to all the beer towns, and we're like, well, why can't we have that? So we decided that we just have to do it ourselves. So we did.
Well, I'm really proud of you.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been an adventure getting through it with the hurricane, then the COVID,
And look at you doing great, and overcoming those obstacles.
Right, yeah. We're scrambling to make enough beer, honestly. So
I think you've proven you can hit whatever's going to come your way. So, all right, 2 last questions for you. What is your favorite beer non-history class?
Left Hand Milk Stout. That's the one that got the whole craft beer thing started for me. I've been to Longmont to make my pilgrimage multiple times, and still today you can go to my house at any time and there will be a Left Hand Milk Stout in the fridge. Gotta have it.
I wasn't even a huge stout fan, but I started trying all their nitro stouts. They had a white Russian white stout. It was really good.
White stouts, I really enjoy those.
And then flipping to travel really quick, do you have a favorite destination you've ever been to?
Oh man, favorite. We go to Denver all the time, so it's Now that my brother's in Portland, it's either like, where are we going this summer? Portland or Denver. Sometimes we'll just sneak away and do it for the weekend. Sarah and I'll be like, oh yeah, Denver. And so there's a concert at Red Rocks like we did this year. We just sneak out there and hit as many breweries as I can, and
Let me know next time, and I'll throw you a bit of left hand.
we'll do it. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And
Absolutely.
can't wait to come back and have some IPAs in the future.
That's right. He'll be here next time.
Bye.